This is Kevin Hockmith with the GS program here at AIU. I will be talking a little bit today about politics and trying to get you to think a little bit different about politics. I teach classes on politics and political economy, as well as courses on Korea and Korean politics and history here at AIU. I've been here for about 10 years. So hopefully our discussion today gives you a little bit of a flavor in terms of sort of the things that go on in the courses, particularly in the GS program. We often have a very interactive style in the classroom that's hard to replicate here on a video lecture, but I will provide my email address at the end. So if you had any further questions or things you wanted to discuss or ask, please don't hesitate to contact me. All right, so I'm going to bring up my presentation. Okay, I think I'm hoping this is working. As you can see, the title of the discussion is Politics Are Everywhere. As I noted to you at the very beginning, I think very often, particularly students, when they enter AIU from high school, they have a kind of certain understanding of politics and what it is and where it takes place. And one of the things I really try to get students in my class, particularly in one of the courses I teach, called Political Science, which is an introductory course to the study of politics, to think about themselves as political actors and think about the politics of their everyday life. And so that's what this discussion is designed to do. Okay, so sorry, my mic here, tipped off. Okay, so. Let me see. This should go to the next. Here we go. Just a little bit more about me. As I mentioned, my name is Kevin Hockmith. I come from the Philadelphia area in the U.S. Well, this is incorrect. I am now 47. I haven't changed this from last year, but I'm 1 year older. Let's see. And just some basic background, academic background. I received my PhD and MA from Temple University in Philadelphia, studying political science. And I went to what is now a partner school. It's now called the University of Mary Washington. And I received a bachelor's degree from there. My job, I'm an associate professor in the Global Studies program, and I teach classes on politics and Korean studies. And here's a list of some of the courses I teach. So hopefully, though I can't see you, one day some of you watching this might be in one of these classes with me. That would be fantastic. And to the extent that it matters, these are some things I like to do. I really love riding around in the countryside in Akita. It's so beautiful, and going to the beaches and swimming in the water with my son. It's really hot in the summer now, so I really love to go to the beach. Okay, so some key words for our discussion today. Conflict, which I think we all are familiar with, right? One way to think about conflict is people have different goals, they want different things, or two or more people want something that cannot be shared, right? I want A, you want B. There might be a conflict, but there also might be I want A and you want A, and we cannot share it. My brothers and sisters and I, when we were kids, maybe it's not so much of a problem now for people in your generation, used to always fight over the television controller. There was only one, and we all wanted it, and so we often had conflict. Cooperation, by contrast, is people working together to achieve a common goal. Persuasion is using arguments and incentives, right? Incentives like trying to give someone a good reason to do something or some reward, right? Parents say, we'll give you some extra spending money if you do, the housework, that's an incentive. And they're to try to change people's minds. Like you don't want to vacuum the house, but then your mom or dad says, well, I will give you 500 yen if you do that. That's an incentive, right? And consensus. Consensus is an idea of all groups, all people in a group trying to come upon a decision that they can at least all accept, right? That we might all want different things, But consensus is trying to come up with one solution that at least everyone finds acceptable, even if it's not exactly what they want. So these are the key words, and we're going to talk about them a little bit more. And I think these are words that we can use to help you understand that you are doing politics in your life all the time, every day. And so, what do we usually think when we think of politics? I think often we think of politicians, we think of campaigns and elections are here. We think of, the prime minister and the government. And certainly that is an important part of politics. But I think it is not only that, right? That we are ourselves engaged in politics, as I mentioned, in our everyday lives. And that is one thing in my classes here at AIU. Discussing politics is to try to have students push the boundary of where they draw the line, and not think of politics as something that is totally unrelated to their lives and something that goes on in a distant place with people they don't know, talking about boring things and so on and so forth. But again, that they are actually themselves doing politics all of the time. Um, and in this sense, for me, the study of politics, as it says here, is a focus on how we create communities and live together, right? And so even if we're not, politicians, I would guess most of you aren't politicians. Maybe some of you have served in student government or been the leader of a club, so you might have some experience in some sort of formal leadership role. But even if you haven't, right? We all live in communities. We all try to find ways to live together, whether it's in our school, in our house, with our friends, right? And this takes to a very classic term from a really central and famous political thinker, Aristotle, Aristotle always wanted to classify things, right? And try to understand things by creating these very specific classifications. And um, one of the ways he described, what makes humans distinct is he called it zoon politikon, right? Which is roughly a political animal, right? That humans are animals that do politics, right? That live together in communities that try to build some idea of a good community and a good life, and work together or build together to try to achieve that, right? And so politics is kind of, for Aristotle, the essence of being a human being, right? That if you are a human being and you are living in a community from this kind of vantage point, you are doing politics, right? And in one of my favorite Aristotle quotes is, for as humans are the best of all animals when they have reached their full development, so they are the worst of all when divorced from law and justice, right? So another aspect of the kind of human being in the context of politics for Aristotle, as he mentioned here, is that human beings have capacities to do the greatest things that animals can do, but also the flip side of that, have the ability to be the worst of all. So for him, that's why politics was so important, that societies that are rooted in a sound set of political relationships is going to be a society that helps that flourishing, right? Whereas a community, that doesn't achieve that will actually fall to the lowest form of animal life. And as a field of study, politics often focuses on conflicts, right? And you can see here, there's often conflicts. A lot of you might not be working yet, but you will be working most likely one day, and might be working in an office or another environment, and you will find that in the workplace there can certainly be conflicts. This is I like this picture because it really shows that too, a lot of conflicts can be rooted in looking at the exact same thing, but seeing it just in a much different way. Um, I think this picture really depicts kind of siblings or friend conflicts, right? That we often have conflicts with our brothers or sisters, or we could look at this as conflicts between friends. Here, a lot of you, I'm sure, are in school, and we can think of schools as also a place where we encounter conflicts, right? And how do we solve them? right? And we can think about various strategies for trying to solve our conflicts. And we can see here with this puzzle, kind of trying to bring someone else into the fold to work together, helping someone who's struggling, discussing together to try to find some sort of common solution, right? And just a kind of cute play of rock, scissors, paper in terms of trying to find ways to resolve these underlying conflicts. And so, as I've been saying, the study of politics can apply to many things we experience in our everyday life, right? And even, in class, I would very much like to hear from you and hear some of your responses. But I guess as I speak through this, you can just take a moment to kind of think about who you have conflicts with. Um, and we can think of friends, as we mentioned, brothers and sisters, parents, teachers, right? This is picture really captures a lot of times. I think, most of you listening, I would guess, are teenagers. And teenagers very often, it's a very, being a teenager is a very political time of one's life because very often you are still under your parents' rules and live in their house, but you are also getting to an age where you feel like you should have more rights, more freedom, more autonomy, right? And so that is very often why teenagers and parents have a lot of conflicts, right? And I'm not saying that necessarily in a negative way. That's a kind of part of growing up. But I think just the mere fact of being a teenager, living in a house with family, your parents or other guardians, can be a very political situation because it's a kind of contest over power and resolving conflicts about what you should be able to do, what is, your parents kind of, what rights do your parents have in terms of setting limits on your behavior and so forth. You can see here friends kind of having a bit of a struggle with each other, which I'm sure we experience. And so again, we don't have, I would really much like to field some answers if we were in the class together. But again, who do you have conflicts with? What do you have conflicts about? And how can we solve these conflicts, right? Because that's politics. Like do you have conflicts? I'm going to guess, since we all do, the answer is yes. Um, and how do you solve them? So right there, that you have conflicts with, people in the communities you live in, your own political communities in a sense, right? School, clubs, your friends, your family, and so on and so on. And we solve them. And in doing that, we're engaging as political actors. And so one way, this is going back to our keywords, one strategy for solving them is cooperation, right? We need to cooperate to accomplish many things we set out to do every day, right? That's so many things that we may not think about, very closely when we consider there's so much aspects of our life that require cooperation, require working together. And this can be small things, and it can be also very large tasks. Like maybe you are with a group in your school or something working on some big project that takes many weeks to develop and so forth. Or you're in the drama club and you work on preparing a performance for months to do so, or music or what have you, right? And all of these things require cooperation, which again is a very political environment. Um, and, again, I would ask you to take a moment and think about what is something where you need cooperation to achieve a goal. And if you take a moment to consider that, I mean, if you need more time, you can even pause the video. I think you'll find that there's many, many aspects of your life that require cooperation. Persuasion, right? So another way to solve problems is persuasion. You use, as I mentioned, arguments or incentives to change other people's minds, right? That this is a form of conflict, resolution where, I want A, you want B. So I try to convince you why A is a better idea or give you some incentive. Like if you, choose my option A, I will help you with your homework or I will do something for you. That's like an incentive or an argument like, oh, A, this is so much better. Like think about restaurants. Like somebody wants to go for udon and somebody wants to go for sushi. And then, you want to go for udon and your friend says, I really want sushi. And you're like, oh, it's so cold out today. It's the winter. Udon's so hot and it really helps warm up. So it's better to go for udon today, right? That's like kind of trying to persuade somebody to change their mind, right? We can see, I really think this is cute. Come with me. That's a rich way, right? Like, trying this is all kind of examples of trying to persuade. And what are some of the ways you can persuade people, right? That's another thing you can think about. Consensus, as we mentioned, is trying to find a solution that works, at least is acceptable to all members of a group. Um, we can think about, we have, someone arguing for vanilla ice cream, and we have someone arguing for chocolate ice cream, and they're saying, I want vanilla. Vanilla is so good. And I'm saying chocolate is so much richer, right? And what do we do in these kinds of situations? And one way is consensus, right? So this would be an example of consensus. Like, well, I would rather have all vanilla, but I'm willing to have a kind of mix. And someone saying I would rather have all chocolate, but a mixed one is okay with me too. And that's it might seem like a silly example, but that's another way we really try to resolve conflicts in our everyday lives. And this is another moment where, you could take a moment to think about this. Like, what do you do to solve conflicts? I've listed some. These aren't all the strategies for solving conflicts. And what I want to circle back to is, again, employing these strategies is a form of politics, right? As trying to create resolution to conflicts, to create a better working community, to build something together, to develop something together, to be able to work together, to be able to create a more positive aspects in our life. And these are things, again, we're engaging with our family, with our friends, with our school every single day. And so that's been one of the big missions is to really have you expand your conception of where politics is and what it involves. So to wrap this up, all of us have conflicts in life, right? We can use cooperation, persuasion, and consensus to resolve these conflicts. And as I've been saying throughout, in doing this, we are participating in politics. We are acting as political actors. And hopefully, if nothing else, after kind of watching this discussion here, you will never think of politics as something far and distant from you. There's certainly a lot more to build on, and I said I very much hope that would be awesome if in a year or two someone came up to me and said, I watched your video, your recording, and here I am in political science class. And that would be really cool. So if by chance you do end up at AIU and you do end up signing up for the political science class I teach to freshmen and sophomores, first and second year students, please come up to me and let me know because I really enjoy doing the live classes with students that come to visit. But this is also a good opportunity to speak to students who weren't able to make it to Akita, but still are looking at AIU seriously. And one of the things I wasn't able to really bring or model here or show here because of the format is that we are able to do in the in-person classes is that one thing that I think is very special and unique about AIU is almost all of the classes are very active and interactive and rely a lot on student participation, input, and development. I just taught a class this morning where the students, did a reading and they led the class, and I participated as kind of a quote unquote student, and they, developed a discussion, developed activities, led the class, and so in a lot of my classes, sometimes students are the ones leading the class rather than me just standing in front and running things all the time. So that's something that I really enjoy about AIU, and if that sounds interesting, I hope you would consider coming and joining us here. On that note, if you do have any other questions or if you about the lecture or about AIU or something that you wanted to ask more about or something you wanted clarification on, please do not hesitate to email me at this address here. Please, in the subject, just mention, open campus online lecture or something like that, just to make sure I know what it's about and make sure to check it right away. So thank you so much for your time and attention. I hope that this gave you some insight or different ways to think about politics in your life. And as I noted, it would be very much exciting and a joy for me to have someone come up to me sometime down the road and say they watched this short lecture here and were now in class with me. Okay, well, I hope you enjoy the other online presentations and wishing you all the best. All right, thanks.